Happy Thursday, everyone. It's time for a fresh edition of Futbol Americas. Your wish, once again, is our command. Alexis Nunes here alongside Herculez Gomez. And look what the cat dragged in. Sebi Salazar is also joining us for this one. Sebi, so good to see your big smiling face coming to us from D.C. Now, plenty to talk about on this show. Lionel Messi and Inter Miami into yet another final. Plus, Herc got to speak exclusively to Gio Reyna and Joe Scally, who are over at Borussia Mönchengladbach. We'll let you know exactly what they had to say about life in the Bundesliga, what they're expecting this season, plus the U.S. men's national team roster that was just announced, and that's exactly where we are going to start. It was the news that we were waiting for all weekend. Mauricio Pochettino has named his 23-man U.S. men's national team squad for September's games against Japan and South Korea. And let's just say it got a lot of us scratching our heads. Now, some familiar names are back in the mix: Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, and Serginho Dest. But it's actually those who were left out that had us going, no Weston McKennie, no Gio Reyna, and no Matt Turner, just to name a few. Well, here's Mauricio Pochettino on his inclusion of Christian Pulisic, plus those who missed out.
Just curious, how much have you and Christian talked since the summer? Obviously there was a little bit of back and forth between the two of you. What kinds of discussions have you had? And then as a second question, when it comes to transfers, guys like Gio Reyna and Tim Weah, making moves, how much advice do you give them on a prospective move, whether it's a good idea with the World Cup so close, that kind of thing? Thank you.
You're welcome. No, we didn't talk with Christian. I think we nothing to talk. I think it's in behind us, all that happened in summer. And I think now we need to look on forward. I think we have a plan for every single player, and the plan for Christian now is to call and to see him in this camp, and of course hope that he arrive in a good condition, fresh. I think good precision with Milan, with his team, and ready to compete. That is the most important thing. And then always is important when the players start to move from one club to another, Gio Reyna or Tim Weah, that maybe they didn't play too much last season or struggled to play. I think always it's important for them to have the continuity, to adapt to the new environment, the new club. Maybe a little bit different because I think Tim already start to play with Marseille. Gio arrived this week, but I think important that is a camp that I think is going to be the last camp to have the possibility for us to see players, new faces, and also with all the condition, injured player that start the preseason late, player that move from one club to another. I think in all that consideration that we have a plan for every single player, I think we decide this roster with this all condition, special condition in this period of the season.
All right, Sebi, let me come to you first there. Your reaction on the 23-man roster and what Poch had to say there.
Yeah, I mean, just if I look at the roster, there feels like an air of desperation, right? I mean, we're 10 months from the World Cup. We've got 8 games, give or take 1 or 2, that still have to be played before the World Cup starts. So we're really at a time where you should be evaluating players. He's brought in 4 guys into this camp that have 0 caps. He's got 11 players with 10 caps or less. That's almost half the roster. I mean, you could describe some of these guys as total flyers. It begs to me the question, is Mauricio Pochettino satisfied with kind of what he sees of the player pool, of the talent pool? And I think at some positions, certainly goalie, defense as well, where he's calling in players with, again, 0 caps. The answer seems pretty clearly no. And so I would be worried about his opinion of the pool. And then beyond that, I think the bigger surprise is, when do we start building on the actual 11? When do we start building on the function of what the first team is really going to look like here? I'm all for Mauricio Pochettino figuring out everything he can about the, 50-player, 60-player deep pool that he thinks he has in the United States. I would say the U.S. is not Brazil or Argentina. But at some point, he's going to get judged on how the top 11 and maybe 12, 13, and 14 play next summer. And right now, it feels like we're a really, really long way looking at this roster from knowing what that top 11 is going to be and how it's going to play, which is maybe more important.
Herc, we talked about this just this Monday when I asked you what you were expecting from this team. And surely he would have to choose a squad that would give us an idea of exactly what he's planning to use come next year, now that we are less than a year away from the World Cup. But we haven't really gotten that. And as Sebi has pointed out, it feels like it gives us more concerns than answers.
Do you remember what I said when you asked? I don't know what to expect, because I don't think he knows, and this is more proof to that. Seb's talking about the starting 11, and I've given Mauricio Pochettino the benefit of the doubt in a lot of different camps. He's not had his starting 11. He's not had his prime players. My worry, as Seb, is I don't think he knows that 11. Desperation is one thing, Seb. If he was looking for players he thought could realistically help him, because he knows that this 11 hasn't done the job. I don't think he really knows the 11. I don't think he sat there and watched tape of the Greg Berhalter era, of the cycle, of the previous finals. If we sat Mauricio Pochettino down and, hey, that final versus Canada, what did you like? When it was BJ Callahan. Hey, that first final in Denver, what did you think? How has their progression been since? I don't think he would have an idea, and that worries me. We're looking at a coach right now who 10 months in has no idea what a roster construction for this team should look like, and he's entitled to bring in new players, and that's great. I don't think the bringing in new players is freaking fans out. I think the collective of these players is freaking fans out. If you introduced, because Sebi's right, and I agree with them, he's not convinced with what he's seen at the goalkeeper position or the defensive position. So if you bring in a Matt Freese, an inclusion of a Matt Freese, if you bring in Celentano, if you bring in a Tristan Blackman by themselves, nobody bats an eye, because you know what? Maybe because what he's seen out of the Austin Trustees, even though he's not had an opportunity, what he's seen out of Cameron Carter-Vickers, what he's seen out of some of these players in Europe isn't cutting it. I would buy that. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing a collection of, and I don't want to put them all in a boat of Major League Soccer players, but untested, unproven players come into camp over some players who are testing themselves at a higher level and have already had equity within this program. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing what looks like shots in the dark. We're seeing what looks like just throwing darts. And that's the worrying thing 10 months out. So I agree with Seb here. I don't know so much if it's he's not convinced with what he's seen, or he doesn't know. And I don't know which concerns me more.
From the starting 11 that you, I suppose, would think of from the group of players, besides Weston McKennie, who we're going to get to in a bit, but who else do you think is missing from what the starting 11 should look like for you?
Well, I think you can make a case for a few players, but Yunus Musa would be somebody that's a head scratcher for me. And there seems to be a lot of water under the bridge that either Mauricio Pochettino can't move on from or wants to send a clear message to.
Yeah.
I want to be fair to Pochettino, because he's new, he's against the 8 ball. It's an impossible situation for him at times, and I'm sure he's got to establish a culture. And I'm sure that's what, in his mind, he is trying to do. But you're 10 months out. You've got 8 games. This is a team that doesn't really have the luxury of saying is 60 deep for you to choose from. I think most people familiar with this roster, familiar with this team, will tell you, hey, this is what you got. You have to make it work with what you got. There could be an inclusion or two of certain other players, but you can't go from having a base and that base be mainly European and those players getting the foundation minutes, the bulk of those minutes, and then you're getting so close to the final dance and they're nowhere near. You're reintroducing players who don't have that experience, who don't have that equity within the team. Not that it's a bad thing, but you're reintroducing too many at once, and that could backfire.
Well, Sebi, the number one name that everybody was looking to see back in this squad, let's be honest, was Christian Pulisic. We've spoken at length about the Gold Cup this summer issue. He has come out and spoken about it as well in his recent documentary. Pochettino, we know exactly where he stood with that whole thing. But look, the point is now Pochettino has included him in the squad. So is that case closed between them? You think we can just move on?
I think so. I mean, they may not have the best relationship, but I think as we found out after the end of the Berhalter era, Pulisic and Berhalter didn't have the best relationship, and he still seemed to get the best out of the player. I think it's clear that Mauricio Pochettino doesn't think that anybody in this pool is special. He's certainly not going to treat anybody in this pool special. Nobody seems to get calls letting him know they're going to be included or excluded from a camp. He's very much about business as it should be, kind of business clearly. And so I think we're not going to see a lot of the behind-the-scenes conversations and all that stuff. But the guys on this team that maybe used to get that treatment are just going to have to get accustomed to it being a little bit differently. And all I want to see from Christian Pulisic now is show us why. Show us why we needed the break. Show us why now that you're with the better players against, in theory, better competition than you would have gotten at the Gold Cup. Maybe we can argue about the 2 games before the Gold Cup, but I think South Korea and Japan are really strong competition. Let's see Christian Pulisic be the guy that Mauricio Pochettino can build around. I think now the pressure shifts on to the player. We've got to put it at Pulisic. You got the summer off. Now's the big opportunity to show Pochettino exactly where your head's at with 10 months to go before the World Cup.
See, I disagree. I think he does think Christian Pulisic is special. I think that's the reason that there was so much news around Pulisic being excluded, or Pulisic and the fallout of U.S. soccer and Mauricio Pochettino, and Pulisic being compared to Lionel Messi by Pochettino to the public, because he does see him as special. And because he's probably the only special player you have, you can't just leave him out. I repeat, the U.S. men's national team doesn't have the luxury of leaving certain players out because they're not special, because the program is not special. There's Matt Turner, there's Joe Scally, there's Mark McKenzie, there's Weston McKennie, there's Johnny, Tanner Tessman, there's Haji Wright, Aronson, Paxton, and Brendan, Anthony Robinson. Fowler and Balogun wasn't originally called up. Yeah. Ricardo Pepi. You don't have the luxury as a program of saying these guys aren't special enough, because there's no special players besides Christian Pulisic. You need a good collective. And that collective, that equity was with those players. So I think you're too far in right now to make wholesale changes. Christian Pulisic and Mauricio Pochettino, I don't think there's going to be an issue there. I really don't. I think Christian Pulisic isn't that type of person. I don't think he has that in him.
Yeah.
I don't think even if he wanted to hold a grudge, it'd be much of a grudge to hold. I don't think he has that personality. I think they're both going to go in it business and move on. There should be a talk. Even though I know Mauricio Pochettino says there's nothing to talk about, I think there should be a talk to
and not with the
clear the air.
coaches.
And now with the assistant coaches, there should be communication with the best player in this roster, the face of the program, and Mauricio Pochettino, who's making $6 million a year. And if people don't like hearing what he's making, the reason I'm stating that's because Sebi says he wants to see something from Christian Pulisic. Well, I think a lot of people want to see something from Mauricio Pochettino. What is that $6 million getting you?
And Sebi, I mean, Herc just mentioned a couple of the players that were left out. I think some of them, do make sense. The likes of Jedi coming back from injury, Ricardo Pepi as well, just getting 4 minutes at the weekend. But when you look at the big glaring omission, to me, it's Weston McKennie. What do you think is going on there?
I mean, it depends. Do we take Pochettino at his word or not?
Right.
Right? Because I think there's kind of 3 different categories of guys that weren't called into this camp. And we'll say fitness is maybe part of all 3 of those categories, but maybe it's just straight up fitness that keeps you out. We've got the guys who maybe Pochettino right now is saying your club team is more important than your national team, or your club team is going to dictate more whether I evaluate you for the national team for the coming World Cup. So I'm going to let you stick around. If I'm one of those guys, if I'm a Cardozo, a Tillman, I'm not too worried. If I'm one of the guys that it's a know what he has guy, which I think is probably Anthony Robinson, maybe some concerns there about overuse. But I think also Weston McKennie, because it's literally what he said. He said, we know what we have with Weston. I don't need to call him in. If we take him at his word, then I think Weston is in the I know what I got, I don't need to see him anymore camp. But maybe he's in the not a fit camp, and that's the Joe Scallys of the world. And so you just got to wonder with a Weston McKennie, where is it? Do we take the manager at his word, knowing a lot of times that what the manager tells us through the press is not exactly the whole truth. And if I were Weston McKennie, I would raise my hand and say, well, wait a sec, there's a bit of an inconsistency. You're saying you don't need to call me in because you know what you have, but in the very same answer, you're saying everybody has to fight. Nothing's guaranteed. Well, if I'm Weston McKennie and everybody has to fight and nothing's guaranteed, I want to be there for that opportunity. I don't want you to decide for me that you've already seen everything of me. So I don't know. If I were in Weston McKennie's camp, I might be a little bit worried, but we got to listen. I can't say Mauricio Pochettino's a liar. And what he said in the statement is, I know what I've got with Weston. I don't need to call him in. That would seem to be a pretty strong endorsement, just if you read the quote.
I don't believe that Mauricio Pochettino's a liar. I believe he's inconsistent in what he says.
You think there's a little more there in terms of Weston?
No, I just think he's inconsistent in the way he says things. I think there's a reason that there are Anglo reporters asking questions in Spanish because they want a direct answer in his native language. I think he's inconsistent sometimes in the way he says things. He uses Weston McKennie as an example of somebody that's in a new situation in their club with a new coach. Well, Timothy Weah is in the same situation, and he gets called in. He doesn't need to see Weston McKennie, but he needs to see Timothy Weah. You know, does that make sense? There are players that they're in the same boat, so it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Do you feel Weston is still Mauricio's type of player, though?
I don't know what Mauricio's type of player, because if you think there are two players right now in camp that you would say those are, or maybe three, Mauricio's type of player. One is not here, and it's Malik Tillman, who had a turnaround summer from what he previously had with the U.S. men's national team. The other is Matt Freese, the goalkeeper, and Diego Luna. Those are the players you would say, oh, look, this is a Mauricio Pochettino type of player. And every coach comes into a program will have his players and want to separate from the previous regime. It happens all the time. Those are the only three players I can think of that are his players, Mauricio Pochettino's players. Is Weston McKennie a player that needs to be in this roster come World Cup time? Absolutely. I think there are a few locks in my mind on this U.S. men's national team, but I'm with Seb. The simple fact that the head coach of the national team says you need to come here and fight, nobody's guaranteed, and you're not part of one of those few games, very important games, by the way, because you don't have World Cup qualifying. You don't have the luxury of playing against good quality competition like Japan and South Korea every day.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, you're sitting in what is the cesspool of CONCACAF. That's what you're battling with. So while it may be good for some of the other CONCACAF nations, it's not good for you. It's not going to prepare you, battle harden you for the World Cup. So if I'm Weston McKennie, just like Seb said, I want to fight for position too.
Now, the cesspool of CONCACAF. Taking slight offense, but anyways. Sebi, Alex Sendejas, he's back as well. He had a bit of a hot streak and then sort of fizzled out a bit. Is now the right time to call him back?
Now's the right time. Now's the only time. I mean, if Mauricio Pochettino is going as deep into the U.S. talent pool as some of the guys on this roster, if you have any idea that Sendejas can help you, and I think anybody who's watched him play for Club America, and I'm sure if not Pochettino, somebody on that staff has been watching this guy and what he's been able to do for the last couple years in Liga MX, you got to be impressed. You got to think there's a way somehow for me to get some of that into this national team picture, and potentially it's something that this national team really needs. The question is, where does he play? How does he play? But for me, if you're Sendejas, this is it. This is kind of last chance saloon. This is your one opportunity to prove that you can make a difference. Competition, but in the camp against this level of player, which is, again, almost the full team, but not quite the full team, right? There's some big name pieces that we think will be there come the summer of 2026. He needs to be a dominant difference maker every day in training. I think this is the last chance for him to walk through that door, and he can't be quiet, he can't be subtle about it. If he's going to turn things around right now in Mauricio Pochettino's eyes, it's got to happen this window, and it's got to happen in a big way. I think he's capable of doing it. I've watched this guy for Club America for a really, really long time. Maybe that makes me biased. Maybe I can't see why he can't quite take it to the international level. But from what I see in the Mexican League on a week in, week out basis, not just for a season, but for 4 or 5 seasons, 2.5 years now on the trot, is that this guy's a difference maker. And I got to think that given this opportunity, he's going to take it.
All right, I got to be very careful how I'm going to say it because I'm a big believer in Alejandro Sendejas.
Yeah.
But these are the inconsistencies that I'm talking about Mauricio Pochettino. Mauricio Pochettino says, I want to see how the player reacts. This is the worst of the 4 seasons, or plus 4 seasons for Alejandro Sendejas with Club America. Those stats you see there, the 1, 2, 3, those are club rankings of a team right now that is struggling. They're not in their best moment. If you call Alejandro Sendejas when he was playing out of his skin, out of his mind, I'm like, absolutely. And I'm a big believer in Alejandro Sendejas, so I hope he takes advantage of this opportunity. But these are the inconsistencies I am talking about. When he was at his best, you said not good enough. And now that the form has dipped to what has been his standard, you said, come back in. Now show me what you got. There are inconsistencies here. Alejandro Sendejas is a very good footballer, and yes, I, like Seb, have found it difficult not to see him excel at the CONCACAF level. Seb says international.
Yeah.
CONCACAF. International would be like you going to a major tournament like Copa America or the World Cup and excelling. We need to see him excel at the CONCACAF level because he's had some opportunities, and for whatever reason, they've not come together. Like Malik Tillman, like a Josh Sargent, like some of these other players who've had those opportunities, Alejandro Sendejas can take advantage because at one point in time, he's of the same age group, of the same pool, U.S. Youth National Team pool, of a Christian Pulisic, of a Weston McKennie, of a Tyler Adams, of a Luca De La Torre, all these players who took their game to European levels. And I feel that Alejandro Sendejas feels that he could be there as well. Well, the only way to get there is with the U.S. men's national team. The only way to provide yourself that platform, I believe, is with the U.S. men's national team. So I agree that he's got to take his game to the next level with the U.S. men's national team, get himself where he believes and I believe he can be.
All right. Well, if it's one thing we've learned about Mauricio Pochettino is that he is not shy at all to show MLS and MLS-based players some love when it comes to choosing his squads. Well, have a listen to what he had to say about comparing MLS with some of the European leagues.
For me, I think we need to open another, way to see the things. We need to give the MLS the value, because I think competing there, I think the player can show that they can perform in the national team. I think it's not necessary to move from MLS to Europe, because sometimes the MLS, under my assessment, maybe is more competitive than some leagues in Europe. Or we have some players maybe competing in different leagues that maybe are not so competitive, or in every single week compete in the same way that you compete in the MLS every single week. But that is my adjustment, and that is the way to see.
All right, there you have it. He said sometimes MLS is more competitive than some leagues in Europe. Now we're going to try our very best to not overreact, but Sebi, when he gives us a little nugget like this, we want to bite. So are we going to say, Poch, get lost with this kind of a comparison, or is he speaking some facts?
So listen, it's tough for me not to hit the immediate get lost here, right? But I think there is some nuance. So let's try to understand. When he says Europe, what does he mean? Okay, obviously he's not talking about the biggest leagues in Europe, right? He's talking about your Belgiums, maybe your Hollands, maybe your German second divisions, which he's got guys in the pool in those leagues. Scotland, I didn't want to say that for the Burleys and Nichols of the world, but yeah, he's got some guys in Scotland as well in his pool. So maybe in that comparison, he's asking if it's more competitive. And I could see, you look at the transfer market, you look at the rosters for an MLS team, and you say, well, that's a pretty good roster, right? That's a competitive roster. Maybe compared to the 12th best team in the Scottish League, the 12th best team in MLS might have a more competitive roster. You know me, Herc. I've said this as long as we've had this show. To me, the very existence of promotion relegation, that having that stake in a game makes a big difference, and you don't have that in MLS. So when he says that MLS is more competitive than leagues where you have that at stake, it's tough for me to buy. Here's why I won't give him the full get lost, though. It's not just lip service. He is putting his money where his mouth is. He truly believes this. He has 12 MLS guys on his roster right now. He had 15 at the Gold Cup. He believes that Major League Soccer is at least as competitive as some of those leagues in Europe. So if he was just saying this and not backing it up with his selections, it'd be easy to tell him to get lost. But I don't know more than Mauricio Pochettino does about soccer. I'm not crazy enough to say that. So if he believes it, I guess I'll take him at his word.
Yeah, but you know more about Major League Soccer than Mauricio Pochettino does. That's a reality, Seb. And that's what's worrying to me. Like, it's just such a vague statement to make. And I'm going to give him a get lost just on the statement alone, just because it's so vague. What do you mean better than teams in Europe or leagues in Europe? Like, do you mean it's can compete with the top 5? It's competitive in terms of what? Parity? It's competitive in terms of what? Player selection? You get to play against some of the best players in the world. Are you saying it's better than Scotland? Sure. Okay. Because you exclude Celtic and Rangers, and that's pretty easy to say. Okay, I believe that because those two teams had the opportunity to play in Champions League. One got thrashed by a Belgian team, the other one by a team from Kazakhstan. So, okay, maybe I'll bite there. Are you saying it's better than a league like Belgium, the Eredivisie, that export players to bigger and better leagues that play in Champions League, Europa League, Conference League? I don't know if I'm biting there. Are you saying it's better than Turkish league that has Jose Mourinho right now and has some very good footballers? I don't know. Are we talking Russia? Are we talking the championship that's a top 10 league in their second division? Like, what are you talking about? Because then I'll bite. Then I'll say, okay, let's have a debate. But when you make it so vague, so broad, that's where the get lost comes in. Now, I've seen this before, and I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to Mauricio Pochettino and give him the benefit of the doubt. But it feels like the U.S. men's national team version of Tata Martino. A little bit of gaslighting going on. And I'm getting worried with things that are coming out of his mouth. I'm a big believer in Major League Soccer. A big believer in Major League Soccer. But you go from the likes of Jurgen Klinsmann wanting his players to test themselves at the highest levels and trying to get his players actively to explore Europe. And I was one of them. Jurgen Klinsmann picked up the phone and was connecting me to teams in the Bundesliga, in the championship, trying to get me to go when I was at Santos. Trying to get his players there. You go from Greg Berhalter to some of his last call-ups, fielding only European players. I believe Miles Robinson and the backup goalkeeper were the only players of Major League Soccer in the lineups. To now, we're seeing an exodus of players in Europe coming back to Major League Soccer. Why? Because maybe in their minds they think it gives them a better opportunity to play for the national team. So when you make statements like this, you can't just make the statement. You have to explain yourself, because we're getting caught in these crosshairs of MLS versus Europe. You can play on the national team if you're in Major League Soccer, which is fine. But what about Major League Soccer makes it strong? Who are the strongest players in Major League Soccer?
Name names.
Not the Americans. They're not the Americans. So it's a get lost unless you can name the teams or the league, that you think Major League Soccer is better than.
Man, if only we could get Mauricio Pochettino's number and call him up. I don't normally beg for men's numbers, but in this case, I probably will if I have to, because Herc needs answers. All right, well, make sure to tune into our other show as well, ESPN FC. We are on 7 days a week on you know where, ESPN+. Well, as we teased at the top, there's been a little bit of a U.S. men's national team reunion over at Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga, as Gio Reyna has joined Joe Scally and Herc. Got to speak to them. Herc, how was it?
It was great. Actually, I was very surprised.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll explain, but I was surprised.
He was surprised. Let's not wait any longer. Here's Herc's interview with Gio and Joe.
Thank you so much for being on Futbol Americas. It's good to see you guys. The last time you guys were together at the club level, mistake me if I'm wrong, was at Academy, New York City FC. Gio, Joe, yes?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever imagine years down the road you guys would be playing together in Europe? Was that always the plan?
I think it was said amongst us, but even when Gio went to Dortmund, for example, and I came to Gladbach, even being 1 hour away, we thought it was the craziest thing. Because you have all of Europe, you have the whole world, and to just be an hour away, we thought that was very special.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, we were able to see each other all the time, regardless if even when I was at Dortmund and he was at Gladbach. So now that we're here, we might get sick of each other.
Gio, this is for you. What specifically out Gladbach made you think this was the right place for you, that this was the right adventure and moment in your life to make the move?
Yeah, I think number one, speaking to the coach gave me a really good feeling. Being wanted, obviously, still a big club that has ambitions to finish high up in the Bundesliga. So, yeah, I think another opportunity for me to also just play, get in the field, get rhythm, yeah, and then sort of get going again. So, just a change was needed, and I'm really, really happy to be here at Gladbach.
You know, you said a change was needed, Gio, but how much of that was, I want to stay in an environment that I already know, a place like the Bundesliga, high competitive league, and settings that you were familiar with?
Yeah, I was open to anywhere that really was the right place for me. I was open to other countries, other cultures, other leagues, obviously. But yeah, when Gladbach came with the interest, it was super interesting, and I wanted to come right away. So luckily, we all made it work. So I'm happy to be here now.
Joe, you know Gio, the ins and outs. What do you think was the selling point for Giovanni Reyna? When he called you, what do you think sold him when you told him about Gladbach?
I think me.
I knew he was going to say that.
I think no, I think like
You think
said,
it was you?
Yeah.
I knew he was going to say that, though. I knew he was going to say that. It's not the right answer.
I think no, like you said, the coach, you know, is a great manager and willing to help young players and give them a chance to play and show themselves. And I think that's something that really, I guess, interested you. And also, Dusseldorf is an amazing city. So even outside of football, to get your head free, you can walk around a beautiful city. You know, you can enjoy a coffee. And I think that's something that also is nice.
Yeah.
You know, Gio, last time that Joe and I spoke, I threw out a stat where he was one of the top 5 players in his age group in the top 5 leagues in terms of minutes. That entice you to see a club that was eager to give young players a chance like that? Was that something, seeing Joe's development, that enticed you to come over?
Yeah, like I said before, it was me just getting the opportunity to play again, you know. So regardless of where it was, you know, other countries, different leagues, Gladbach seems that I can make that happen too. So yeah, of course, watching him play week in, week out was more just nice to watch him play and cheer him on and support him. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, was for sure playing time. Obviously, you know, I feel like it's the time to take the next step for me, and also, of course, with the national team now too, it's obviously really important that I play, wanting to come back in and yeah, be ready for the World Cup more than anything.
Gio, you started off so hot in the Bundesliga with Dortmund, and then the last 3 years, there was a stall in your development. If you could pinpoint anything, what went wrong, what do you think it was?
Yeah, I think it was just the lack of consistent playing time, to be honest. I think it's not always easy if you you know, play one game and then don't play again for 4 weeks. So it's sort of yeah, a bit of consistency, a bit of, you know, feeling valued, a bit of, you know, all that. And then I believe when I get going again and get rhythm and get fully confident, then the rest will fall into place. So I felt really good here so far in just the few days I've been here. The staff, the players, everything around the club. So yeah, I'm just really happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Gio, you brought up the national team. The call-up, the roster was dropped yesterday. Yourself and Joe weren't on it. I guess your immediate reaction, Gio, to not seeing yourself or Joe on it, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really be, I guess I'm just speaking for myself. I can't be too surprised if obviously I haven't played any games with club yet this season, and I haven't played any even preseason games. So, yeah, I don't want to speak for Joe. That's obviously, he can speak for himself on that. But for me, I can't obviously be mad about it. Of course, I want to be back in, but I only know that's only possible with playing time and performing well. So that's how it is. That's how it should be also.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, I played the last, I think, 2 years, almost every game for the national team, and then to miss out on the Gold Cup in this camp, of course, it's upsetting. You know, you feel like you put yourself in a position when you play all the games to be there, but in the end, it's the coach's decision. I respect that, and of course, I'll do everything to hopefully be back in the next camps.
Was there communication from Mauricio Pochettino or the coaching staff to either of you about the decision?
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
I'm sure you both have the mentality you need to prove yourself. What's been the communication from the national team coaches, the coaching staff, about what you need to do to come back in the fold?
Yeah, I think I've been to the first couple camps with Pochettino, and the main thing that we emphasize is playing time. Always at your club, working as hard as you can to be playing, to be starting for your club. And I think when you're there with the national team, it's full focus on doing everything for the country to win, and to always be 100% focused. And I think that's what he's instilled in the team.
Yeah, for me, it's I've spoke to him a few times and also been with him at one camp, so it's pretty. I guess he keeps it simple in terms of just getting playing time. I think it's important for rhythm, important for fitness. At the end of the day, you I guess work in this space to play. You don't. I don't come here to train and spend a lot of time away from my family in Europe to not play. So this is number one that I want to do, and that he's also and his staff have sort of told me is, if you play and perform well, then you'll definitely have a chance to get back in the mix. So this is what I believe.
You mentioned about having to play consistently to get call-ups for the U.S. men's national team. Yesterday, Mauricio Pochettino made waves when he said that Major League Soccer is just competitive as other leagues in Europe. I'm curious, from two guys that have been in Europe since they were teenagers, would you make of that assessment? Would you agree that Major League Soccer is just as strong, just as competitive as other leagues around Europe?
I think some leagues, of course, it could be equal to or as competitive. I think the MLS is a strong league and getting better each year. But I don't know. For me, I think as you get to the top level and maybe the top 3 or 4 leagues, it's you're playing against some guys who are worth $100 million. And I think that's a little bit of a difference for me. I would say.
Yeah, it's hard to judge, but I guess the direction of the MLS is heading in a good direction.
Gio, very quickly, very important year for you. Do you feel the responsibility to finish your career the way that many people think it started and could end? Do you feel like you have a responsibility to hit that ceiling?
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of I guess it comes from within more than anything. I guess what the people say doesn't really affect me at all. Of course, when they say they want me to play, I want to play too. So I guess on certain things we're aligned. But yeah, that was definitely the number one reason to come to Gladbach, was the opportunity to play. And I guess, the only reason you can really progress and get better as a player is if you play. So it's the only way possible. So yeah, I really hope and I do believe that things will go well this season. I feel great so far in just 2 days, and can only imagine what the season will hold for myself and for the rest of the team too.
Gio Reyna and Joe Scally, they're chatting to our Herc. Now make sure to tune in to the full interview. That was just a snippet on the Futbol Americas podcast. It is dropping on Friday. So Herc, let me come to you because you spoke to them at length. And as you said before, they said some things that surprised you. What were they then?
It wasn't what they said, it's how they said it. Gio Reyna has had a difficult 3+ years.
Oh, yeah.
I had the hurricane difficult. Club level, national team level, we're talking about a player that had the drama and fallout with his family and with the Berhalter family post-World Cup. A player who's had countless coaches at Dortmund who have overlooked them. To go to the Club World Cup, I believe he played 12 minutes. To not play with the U.S. men's national team, and when you were there, his team needed a goal. Coach saw him on the bench and said, "No, I'm good."
Yep.
There seems to be humility that has come with all that, and a recognition in himself, I would say, where he's like, I've got to do me and play. I can't be mad at this coach for not calling me because I've not played in the last 3 years. He's not seen who I am, so I can't blame him. That accountability to me, that humility, is not something I've seen in Gio Reyna in the past. Everybody knows Gio Reyna's ceiling. everybody but Mauricio Pochettino. And I think Gio Reyna realizes that. He's not shown Mauricio Pochettino anything, so he can't expect anything. And I thought that humility was refreshing.
Sebi, what about you? What stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Gio Reyna. I think it's the admission, right, that maybe there was a time, I think it's fair to say that there was, where what was happening for Gio Reyna at the club level didn't really matter at the national team level. He was kind of one in that prospect mode at a big club like Dortmund, so there was always an excuse, right? Hey, there's a super talented player in front of him. Maybe he's not ready to start there, but if he can make an impact there, imagine what he can do for the national team. And I think there was the reality that there was no other player like him. Nobody else, maybe even in the entire pool, that might give you hope that could be as productive as Gio Reyna in those kind of key moments between lines, the magic that he creates. But for a while, that was good enough to get him into the national team. Now he's admitting, he's acknowledging, as Herc says, that it's going to come down to playing time and literally what he does at club. And I think it's a big, big question mark. I don't know that it's a guarantee that he's going to shine, that he's going to start, that he's going to get immediate minutes at Gladbach. It's a good club with high aspirations and a good talent pool. So I wonder if he's going to get the opportunity at club to impress enough to work his way back in. I think a lot of people, and I think I would probably put myself in this camp, we just kind of assume at the end of the day Gio Reyna will be there because of talent. But I think there's a really good chance, based on what Mauricio Pochettino thinks he's uncovered in guys like Tillman and guys like Luna, that if Gio Reyna doesn't play at a place like Gladbach, where it's not going to be easy to get minutes and it's not going to be easy to keep minutes, there's a real chance that when the 2026 World Cup roster is dropped, he's not a part of it. And I think even a couple years ago when he wasn't playing at Dortmund, we always thought, well, everybody knows his talent. The coach will surely figure out a way to get this guy in. That's no longer the case. He's acknowledging it, and those are at least the right things to be saying. But as we've long said, and Herc's been kind of the first person leading this chant around Gio Reyna, at some point it's got to come down to the player, and now is that time for him. It couldn't be clearer.
Yeah, well, we knew about Gio Reyna's situation, as you said, whether it was, off the field issues that kept him out, whether it was injuries that kept him out, or the club just not choosing him. We know exactly what he needs to do. He sounds like he knows exactly what he needs to do. But what about Joe Scally? What stood out to you there, and probably why you think he was omitted from this squad?
I have to go back to something Seb said earlier, probably preference, because you look at Joe Scally, who consistently plays. If that's the knock on this U.S. men's national team, is like, yeah, they're in Europe, but a majority of guys don't play. Joe Scally's played.
Yep.
Joe Scally's played as a right back in a line of four. He's played as a left back. He's played as a right wing back. He's played as a third center back. He's played. Joe Scally's been a consistent performer, whatever you make of those performances, if you like Gladbach, if you like their chance, if you like what he produces, but he's playing. And he was consistently part of a program as a young player for the last 2 years. And now he's not, and he's taking a back seat to players that are just getting their first caps, who apply their trade, respectfully I'm saying, in Philadelphia, in Orlando, who could potentially have something down the road, but don't have 5 years worth of European experience, don't have that equity built in with the team, weren't at the last World Cup. So I understand his frustration. I understand his reaction. He was very respectful as well to that. That's my takeaway, Joe Scally. And I'll just echo something that Joe Scally said to Mauricio Pochettino's Major League Soccer is just as competitive as other leagues around the world. Well, some of these leagues we're playing against players that are worth $100 million.
Yep. He said that's a small difference, but that's a massive difference, period. Sebi, what about you? What do you make of the Joe Scally situation then? Because as Herc said, it's one that makes me scratch my head too as well, because he has performed on a consistent level for a top-tier club.
Yeah, and it's got to be a preference thing at this point, right? Because it's not just this camp, it's the Gold Cup as well. I hear Herc that he was very respectful, right? And if you read the quotes, Joe Scally says the right things. I like to think of myself, though, as an elite people reader, okay? An elite body language expert. That was a frustrated dude in that interview.
Oh, yeah.
That was a frustrated dude. You could tell by the answers. I've been playing here. It's almost
he said he was upset. Yeah.
What more do you want? What more do you want me to do? Right? I started 30 games in the Bundesliga last year. Right? I basically had 30 appearances in the Bundesliga every year since I was 18. That's the consistency that very few players in this national team pool can offer. He can do a bunch of jobs. He can play wing back for you. He can play on either side of a back four. I really don't get it with Joe Scally. It must be something we're not privy to, because even when you think about it from a footballing sense, Herc, even if the performances haven't been great, and I think you could make that point when it comes to his national team performances, I mean, he's just so versatile and he's just so consistent. I can't imagine a scenario where you don't take a player on a 26-man roster with that profile to the World Cup, especially in the American pool.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me in any other way that it has to be something where Joe Scally can't technically do something that Pochettino highly values, or personality-wise there's some type of clash there. Because there's no other reason for him to be missing out this and in the summer. When everybody else is not there and you need every European-based guy, you would think.
Correct, especially in a tournament setting where you need players who play multiple positions, because it can come down to that for player selection. I'll just add this. When I go back into the memory bank and I think of players that Mauricio Pochettino has entrusted tactically to play differently in different situations, there's been three. Nunes Musa, the right-hand side, coming in. Anthony Robinson going forward, adding himself in the midfield, and Joe Scally adding himself as a third center back. Those have been the players with tactical wrinkles under Mauricio Pochettino, and now we're not seeing them. It has to be preference, because if you're saying you got to fight and earn your way at your club, there may be no player in this pool that has done that in a minutes issue or minutes base like Joe Scally.
Right, well, we'll see if Mauricio Pochettino tunes into ESPN this weekend, because that's where Gio, potentially and definitely Joe Scally, will be in action. Well, Javier Aguirre has named his Mexico squad for September's friendlies as well. And guess what? Chucky Lozano is back. And after missing out on the Gold Cup, Rodrigo Huescas has also been included. Herc, what stands out to you? And why is it Chucky Lozano?
Well, Chucky Lozano is an obvious one there. Chucky Lozano coming back into the fold. His play with San Diego has given him the opportunity to come back into the good graces of the Mexican national team. He was left off previously. There were reports of indiscipline. There were reports of, the federation officials didn't like what he had to say about Jimmy Lozano and the tactical lineups in the final versus Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. We can go into the various reports.
The novela that it has been.
Yes, that it has been. That is one, Chucky Lozano. A second one would be Memo Ochoa, not on this list, looking for his 6th World Cup. Doesn't have a team right now. There are reports of a second division team in Spain. Maybe that'll happen. And the third one for me, and probably the most important for me, because I could argue that Chucky Lozano's coming back, great. Show me the last time that he did something for the Mexican national team that wasn't 2018 World Cup game against Germany. You're going to struggle. Memo Ochoa, not in, well, he's potentially the third goalkeeper, right? That's what you're saying.
Even just to have him there, that presence.
Fine. But it's Gilberto Mora, the teen sensation, not in this squad that has me scratching my head. You're taking Gilberto Mora out of here, Seb, and allowing him to miss vital games, okay? Big games, because you don't have World Cup qualifying. You're stuck playing the cesspool that is CONCACAF. You've got big games coming up. You could use this, okay, to showcase him. I know he's 16 right now. He's got to wait some time to make that European move, but he's going to have a market. And you're taking him to the U20 World Cup? Do you know why teams don't allow their best players of that age bracket to go play in those youth tournaments? Because this is a youth tournament and because of risk of injury. Could you imagine, God forbid, something happens to this kid in that tournament and you miss out on what I believe could be a generational talent for Mexico?
You feel he's ready for more now?
Mexico's had 2-3 generational talents in their history, okay? The last time a teenager debuted with the Mexican national team at a young age, the last 2 times, I should say, they became prime players. Rafa Marquez, and we know what Rafa Marquez did in Barcelona and with the Mexican national team, 5 World Cups, and Andres Guardado, who spent over a decade in Europe and was also in 5 World Cups. A great leader, one of the all-time just great body of international experience. Gilberto Mora could be one of those players. But you want to send him to what? Win you a U20 World Cup? Mexico's won 2 U17 World Cups. What has that gotten them? Like, Gilberto Mora, take care of him, prepare him with quality opposition. Like, if you really feel he's going to be at the 2026 World Cup, if what you're telling people is the Gold Cup wasn't just something because it's CONCACAF opposition, we really feel he can play, allow him to play in these games. He's going to be better off for it than playing in the U20 World Cup.
Sebi, Mora out, but Chucky Lozano in. Which one, I suppose, made you question more?
Oh, definitely Mora being out. I mean, this is a player that since the summer, you know, if you're a Mexican national team fan, you have a reason to be excited about, right? Not just about what he could be for the national team, what he could be as an individual. Herc, I'm sure you saw this, the El Chiringuito interview today with his agent.
Rafaela Pimienta, yeah.
Yeah, she didn't really confirm, but she didn't really deny when the reporter asked about a Real Madrid interest in the player. We're probably a few years off from that. But this is a really exciting player. And beyond that, it's a Mexican national team midfield that really struggled to be productive until his inclusion. And so if we're thinking that the Gold Cup mattered, that it was some sign of progress for the team, that now you've got a base that you can build off of, certainly Gilberto Mora is part of that. So to Herc's point, as the sand starts to run through the hourglass on these World Cup preparations and the opportunities to kind of really figure out what it is you're going to be doing in 10 months' time, this is a guy who hasn't played all that much at the senior international level. So I would want him to get all the experience he could, especially against good non-CONCACAF, I don't want to say cesspool, non-CONCACAF opponents like Japan and South Korea. This, to me, would be a really good opportunity for him to become maybe even more of a staple of that midfield. And that's what I think the most hopeful Mexican fans are wanting. So to me, to see him left out raises questions and maybe makes me even doubt if he's going to be as big a part of the team moving forward as I would have thought. The Chucky Lozano thing to me is very much a flyer. And as much as I want to be respectful of his work in MLS, and it is very good, you know, basically a little bit more than a goal or an assist per game in his contributions with San Diego is being very productive. This is more an indictment of the players in that position that Mexico doesn't have right now. You know, and giving Chucky Lozano a shot is fair based on what he's done, but I got to think that there are hopefully some better options for Javier Aguirre. Some of who he has not called in here, a guy like Julian Quiñones, who continues to be on whatever list it is that Javier Aguirre doesn't seem to like. But to me, you see a guy like Diego Lainez called in, like, okay, they're trying that again. There are some flyers in this roster when it comes to those attacking positions. I'm not against Javier Aguirre taking them, but I don't think this is some sign that Chucky Lozano is returning to the form that we saw 5-6 years ago.
Leo Messi, that is what we love to see. So they booked their spot into the final. Here are a couple of the match notes that you can see. 6 goals for Leo Messi against Orlando City. That's the second most against a single team since his arrival to Inter Miami. The records just keep tumbling for this special player. So let's hear from the man of the moment after the game.
Quería estar desde que volví con Galaxy y sentí una molestia ahí, no me sentía cómodo. Me preparé para estar en este partido porque sabía lo importante que era el rival, un rival muy complicado que este año no había ganado los 2 partidos que nos enfrentábamos. Bueno, la verdad que el primer tiempo me sentía un poquito con miedo todavía, pero en el segundo me solté un poco más.
All right, well, Leo Messi is back and Inter Miami back in another final.
I would say with some controversy. There was
in terms of the calls.
In terms of the calls, absolutely. There's an Ivan Angulo 1v1 in transition with Sergio Busquets that he gets clearly tripped on the line. And they did a check, and they said, play on, and you go. And Inter Miami takes their chances, goes forward, gets a penalty, gets the equalizer, and then takes over to a 10-man Orlando team. So if I'm an Orlando fan, I would feel very hard done. I would feel very cheated. If I am a fan of Messi, if I am an Inter Miami fan, I've seen this before. I've seen Messi take over games before. And what surprises me is how much he cares. And I'm not going to say he cares about Leagues Cup, he just cares about everything that is winning.
Yeah.
He cares about winning. He's celebrating not only his goals with his kids, and I think that's a big component.
It's a World Cup game.
Yeah, of why he's back in Major League Soccer, why he's here in the United States, is because he wants to have that moment with his family, but also the way he celebrates the win. It's like he won a World Cup game. He loves to compete. And even at his age, I can't get over the competitive beast that he is. Now, controversy was there. Absolutely. So I repeat, if you're an Orlando fan, you should feel cheated, robbed. If you're an Inter Miami Messi fan, you should feel like you've seen this way too many times, Messi taking over.
We do see it way too many times, but we never seem to get tired of it, Sebi. We got the Messi magic, but to Herc's point, should Orlando feel a little hard done?
I don't disagree with anything that Herc's saying,
but
to me, you gotta look at the play. Brecalo on the penalty. You're beaten there. Let Allende have the header. Why are you even messing around there with a potential second yellow card, red card penalty? The stakes are so high there. There's no way if you're Orlando, you're competing against this Inter Miami a man down. I just cannot understand why the player would do that in that situation. So to me, I can understand that they might feel hard done, but you got to look in the mirror as well. And that's just an obvious and very stupid mistake to make with 15 minutes to go in the game.
That's a little tough.
I mean, you're beat. You're beat. Accept the fact that you're beat.
Correct.
And give your goalie the chance to make the play.
Let's accept. That's fine. That's fine.
You
I
don't
agree.
accept the penalty.
I agree.
With a yellow, it's an obvious red. I mean,
Seb,
there's no way you're surviving
I
that.
agree.
There's no way.
I'm not going to argue the penalty kick. I'm just saying goals change games. And at the 55th minute, if you're 2-0, okay, if you're 2-0 on the road against a team that has trouble with their legs, has trouble with physicality, has trouble closing out games against a team that's already dropped multiple goals on you already and beaten you multiple times, they know how to play. It's over. It's over. That's what I'm saying. Okay? Like the other mistakes that happened, that's on Orlando, but Orlando fans have every right to feel hard done here.
Well, just
but
one
in the
other
end of the
thing
game,
on Messi.
in the end of the game, they're up 1-0. Despite all of those things happening,
That's
they're
fine,
still up
Seb,
late.
but we can't ignore the obvious. 2-0, you're closing it out. You're closing it out. The way they play that transition football, it's done. That goals change games, and I think that was a play that changed the game. Now, that's Inter Miami, okay? That's on the referee. They got to continue to do what they have to do, and they did it very well. And as Seb said, they put Orlando in positions to make mistakes in the end of the game, and they took over. And when you have an outlier, when you have a game changer like Messi, it's just a matter of time.
Speaking of that game changer, Messi, just quick thing on him, Sebi, just the fact that Messi did admit also in another interview after the game that next week's friendly, or World Cup qualifier rather, definitely not a friendly, against Venezuela could potentially be his last World Cup qualifier at home. He talked about how his whole family is going to be there, and he said, quote, "I don't know what will happen, but we're going in with that mindset." So given the fact that he has been in and out with niggles and some injuries and recovering, but then sitting out the next game because of it, and he is 38 years old, and I guess he is human after all. Why bother risk it? Even though we know for Argentina, he's happy to risk everything. But if you're looking at it from Inter Miami's perspective, why risk it?
Well, I mean, Inter Miami is, in theory, wanting to win trophies, right? So this is their next closest chance to win a trophy, is this game. And we got to be honest, right? It's not just Messi in the post-game interview that's talking about this potentially and very likely being his last game in Buenos Aires. Every news outlet across the world is talking about this, right? This is a highly anticipated global event. I'm sure Lionel Messi is not risking his participation in that, a last game in Buenos Aires with a national team shirt, for any semifinal, Leagues Cup or any other with Inter Miami. If there was any doubt, if there was any true risk, I think what we see with Messi is minutes management, right? This is an older player. He's a Ferrari. He needs to be running at a very specific RPM, and they're only going to let him do it when he's capable of it. When he's not, he simply goes to the coaches, as we heard from Rodrigo de Paul the other day, and says, "It's not for me today." And they've got a plan B, which for Inter Miami's case, lucky enough, seems to work pretty well without him. So Inter Miami, I think, as a team, is never going to risk Messi. If we see him out there, it's because he believes that he's fine, and as he proved last night, he's perfectly fine. 2 goals, a dominant performance, and we don't even know what percentage he's at of his, total capacity.
You know who's not going to be fine? Alejandro Moreno in Venezuela, because that's Messi's last game, and it's at home. His send-off at the international level. Good luck, Venezuela. Vamos, Venezuela, my man would say, but it's going to be a difficult one. Now, this brings me a little sadness.
Yeah.
I've never seen an individual on the field do what Messi does. In YouTube videos, from what I was able to see of Pelé, to the brief instances I was able to see with Diego Maradona, to Zidane, to my R9 Ronaldo, to Cristiano, and Messi, I've never seen anybody do what Messi's done, and the longevity. So to see it coming to its end, it makes me a little sad. It makes me a little sad for what we've witnessed, but I feel lucky to have witnessed.
Yeah, we definitely feel lucky to have witnessed it
Don't
all.
be sad because it's over. Be happy because it happened.
Also, I love how Sebi was comparing him to Ferrari. Sebi has a lot of experience with Ferraris. We're clearly paying him too much.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to the next the next semi-final. This was like the Herc Classico, like a battle of your teams, Herc, wasn't it?
Well, one of many.
Herc's a Voyager. Galaxy up against the Sounders, 7 minutes in, and the Sounders take a 1-0 lead.
I mean, a comedy of errors here. If you're the goalkeeper, you can't call your defender. You can't call Cuevas off here. Let him clear the ball. This is bad goalkeeping, bad decisions. The Sounders keep it going, and De La Vega's going to smash it home.
Some would say that goalkeeping was Shaka-strophic. Yep, I said what I said. I said what I said. We love you, Shaka. 57 minutes in now, and Sebi Sounders double their lead.
Yeah, can defending be Shaka-strophic?
Oh, yeah.
Because this defending is Shaka-strophic. I mean, come on. I know that's D-Rose kid, but it ain't Dennis Rodman in his prime.
No, that's...
Oh, no, Nuhu, what are you doing? I mean,
This is classic Nuhu, by the way.
It is.
Classic.
But you're 10 minutes away
I can hear
from playing
Brian
in the final.
Spencer. Nuhu, he's bitter on the sideline.
You should have heard me. I'm watching this past midnight, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so unnecessary. Just wild.
I attempted to watch this, but alas, I'm getting on in age as well, like Messi, and I fell asleep. But here is the tale of the tape, because it's going to be Inter Miami up against the Seattle Sounders in the final. And you have a look at their head-to-head titles. They've only played once there, and this was pre-Leo Messi, so this is going to be a whole other ball game as well. Okay, so here are the odds for the final, and surprise, surprise, Herc, it's pretty even.
It's even right now. We'll see where the bookies or the money starts leaning, and that's going to make it not so even. It's a continental, which I shouldn't say it's a continental final. It's a final with a superstar like Lionel Messi. You'd be crazy to bet against him. You'd be crazy to bet against Messi. But I'm going to bet against Messi. I'm going to bet with the Sounders. And it should be no surprise here. This is a plus 5-hour trip, okay, to go play on turf. After multiple games for aging superstars, count them, 5 players on that Inter Miami roster are nearing 40 years of age for a team that struggles in transition. And Orlando City showed you that's a blueprint of how to play against Inter Miami. How do you think Brian Schmetzer and the Sounders have played for a better part of a decade? And finally, the Sounders are back to a final. They've not been to a final since the final they won in the CONCACAF Champions League against Pumas. That's the last time they were in a final. They're back to a final. They've lost once in the last 14 games. They're going to be playing on turf in front of that amazing crowd. They're opening up the upper deck. It's going to be a full house at Lumen Field. Another game for Messi and these stars on turf 3 days later. Yeah, if it's a pick 'em, yeah, I'll put some money on the Sounders. Yeah, I'll take that. And by the way, Brian Schmetzer, the most disrespected, undervalued coach in North America. The man has reinvented the Sounders once again, lost 2 DPs, prime players, and has, checks notes, De Rosario's son out there like he's an enforcer, bullying guys. This team, the Sounders, they're a difficult team to play against again. Again, defensively gritty and play transition football, something that extremely can hurt Inter Miami. I'll take the Sounders in Seattle.
Do you know what? I just want to say that the last time Herc told us to put money on Tigres in the quarterfinals against Inter Miami when Messi was not playing.
I said bet the house.
He actually said bet the house. Yeah. So we would all be homeless
I'm living on the
right
streets now. What
we
happened?
would all be on the streets right now, Sebi. So talk to me. What are you saying?
You got to have multiple houses when you listen to me.
Must be nice.
No, when you listen to me, you have to have multiple houses.
Hey, I'm not funded on that level. Listen, I think a year ago, or maybe it was a year and a half ago, when we first started talking about Messi and Major League Soccer and would he win the MVP and would he win the Golden Boot, I just couldn't find a reason not to pick Lionel Messi, not to bet on a team that has Lionel Messi at the Major League Soccer level. And I actually think this is without a Mexican team as much of a dream final as you could have, right? If you're MLS, where else would you rather have Messi going into a potentially hostile crowd in Seattle? Great soccer history there, organic soccer history, something maybe you could say MLS lacks. Sure, it'd be great if it was a Mexican team, but him going into Seattle for me is a great storyline. This is a great final, but I'm just betting on Messi. I'm betting on the quality of Inter Miami. If you saw the goals against Orlando, if you saw some of the stuff they're doing in the final third, it's just beautiful. And I think the Nuhu red card is not going to be insignificant for Seattle. So, yeah, it'll be a big crowd there. There'll be a lot of Seattle fans. Herc, you know there'll be some Messi fans too. They'll buy their way into that stadium. It won't be just Sounders fans. But I'm not picking against Messi, against MLS competition. Sorry. It's too good of a bet, especially basically even money. I'm taking Inter Miami.
Welcome back to Futbol Americas. Now, in honor of his Spanish Heritage Month, Charlie has launched a new heritage collection celebrating Mexican culture and style. Now, straight up, you know I'm from Jamaica, but I love me all Mexico drip. Sebi, this 100% is a drip. I know you love some Mexican drip too.
I do. I love some Charlie drip. I could only possibly love it more if they sent a box of it, every one of those 4 jerseys, to my house in Bethesda, Maryland. So, Charlie, you know where I'm at. Send me some gear, preferably in a medium.
Period. Send some to Bristol, Connecticut as well, because that is all straight drip, right, Herc? Oh yeah, Herc.
I'm already on the Charlie train. I'm already on the Charlie train. They got some straight drip, and everything they put out is great. I really like the white one with the little burgundy there. It's a straight drip for me. Take note, Mexican national team.
Oh, shots fired. Who knew we were even going to try to close with that? Anyways, that's it for this edition of Futbol Americas. Thank you, as always, to our OG Sebi Salazar for joining us. Make sure to tune in to a fresh edition of the show on Monday. We will be back talking about the Leagues Cup and see exactly what happens.